Hey, it's me, Nalthazar, and welcome to my review on the set Throne of Eldraine. Now, I've had a chance now to play all of the different events. I've had a chance to play with all of the regular cards and the exclusives. I think I'm missing 2 Vanguards for the set, and then that's it. So I've really gotten to play with everything here, and so I feel like I have a pretty good take on the set as a whole. I'm going to be breaking this down into a few different sections. So the first section is going to be on card design and just the cards in general. So that includes mechanics and all that good stuff. The second one is going to be on the events. We got 3 new events in Eldraine. We got the Great Tournament, we got Challenge of the Courts, and we've got Fables of Eldraine. Then the third thing I'm going to be going over are going to be the new Planeswalkers. And then number 4 is going to be the exclusives. And then finally, number 5 is going to be the Vanguards. So let's just jump into it and start going over our good little cards. Now, we got a bunch of new mechanics in the set. The mechanics were Adventure, Adamant, Food, Mill, and Resourceful. And of all the new mechanics, the one that I was most looking forward to was Adventure. And so I was really looking forward to Adventure because just a lot of the cards that have Adventure have really cool abilities on them. So I was particularly looking forward to using Beanstalk Giant and then playing off of the green gem conversion and then just making a giant deck. And so if you've seen my Big Chief video, you'll know that I got to try it out. But if you actually take a look at the giants and you see how much experience each of these cards has, they don't actually actively have a whole lot of experience. And this includes other really good cards like Murderous Rider, which is really strong in its own right, and also Brazen Borrower, which is a great card. And the real piece about this is just that during this set, there were a lot of issues with double-sided cards. And so just because I wanted to avoid the crashes involved with double-sided cards, I really didn't get to play with the adventure cards all that much. So I'm actually really looking forward to the next set, in part just because it's kind of like I get to play with adventure brand new again, because I'll get to play with it and not have to actually worry about all of the crashes that are going on with it. And then actually the very first deck that I made when Eldraine came out. So I opened all my packs and I pulled Lucky Clover and I was thrilled. And the very first deck I made was a Lucky Clover and then Fertile Footsteps deck. And it crashed, it hard crashed. So Adventure is a really cool mechanic. I wish 2 things had happened with Adventure. One was that it was just a little bit more stable. And then 2 would be that there were other things that enabled us to fetch adventure creatures and then play them for their spell side. So I feel like it would have been really cool if there was a card that was like fetch a creature and then and then you may choose to play either the spell side or the creature side and give it some amount of mana. So I feel like that would have been pretty cool. As it stood, I used Chord of Calling a lot, and then I would fetch a creature with flash so that I wouldn't automatically play it. And then on my turn, I would go ahead and play the spell form of it. So there's some really cool adventure cards. I really like that there is a good balance of commons, uncommons, and mythics that are useful. So something simple like Foulmire Knight, which is a 6/6. Sorry, 6/6. It's if this was a 6/6, it'd be busted. A 6 mana, 1/1 Berserker Death Touch, and then for 3 mana, you lose a life, draw a card. Now, you're probably not going to be using Profane Insight much, but just the Knight itself serves as a way of just killing things, and it's a really useful way of completing objectives. So in all, the actual design of the adventure cards for me is like a 5 out of 5. I love the design of them, but the implementation of the adventure cards, just because of the different bugs involved, is a little bit less. Now, with that being said, I'm really excited for the next patch, and I'm excited to see how all these cards play out when they're fully stable. So next we have Adamant. Adamant was the second of the mechanics. I spelled Adamant wrong. Silly guy. And with Adamant, when you matched a gem of the Adamant color, you'd get some kind of ability. And when I first started playing the set, I sort of actually wrote off Adamant. I looked at the cards and I was like, eh. And then I played a new start account. And for new players, Adamant is actually an amazing mechanic. So it's really easy to look past it in Platinum. But I mean, let's take a look at some of these cards. Just think of it from a new player's perspective, right? So this here, if you make a blue match to play it, is 7 mana for a 4/4 flyer, which is great for someone in bronze or silver. This is 9 for a 5/2 menace. This is 9 for a 6/3 with haste. So that's just it's just so much value for a really cheap creature, and they're all commons. So I was able to get my hands on all of them on my new start account, and they actually made a really big difference for me. So I know there's a lot of talk about like, how do new players get into the game? Like, how are they going to compete with stuff that already exists? And once you get to Platinum, I'm sure that once that new start account gets to Platinum, that I'll have further commentary on it. But just from both an experienced player's perspective and someone who has a new account, I found that Adamant was a really nice addition to the game. Food. Food is number 3. Food actually turned out to be my favorite. So food, oh, sweet food. Food turned out to be my favorite pretty much solely because of Gingerbread Cabin. So food, they're little tokens. They come out, they're artifacts. They've got 1 shield each, and then when they pop, you get 3 back. I feel like food was actually implemented really well in the set. There are a lot of food cards. And the other thing about food is that food played just fine if you just got all of the cards from packs, but food actually plays at like its ultimate peak value with the exclusive cards. So I'm going to be going over food when I get to the exclusive section, and so that's going to include like Ayara and Korvold and stuff, but food is good in both ways. So I actually really liked food. And I also really like food because of how it plays in with the objectives. Food is like a full 5 out of 5 for me. Actually, Adamant is like a full 5 out of 5 for me too, for that matter. Mill. Now, Mill, there weren't a whole lot of cards with Mill. It was a new mechanic. It's kind of like testing the waters with graveyard stuff. And the best of the cards was definitely Lockmere Serpent. And Lockmere Serpent is definitely a strong card. But you can see, same as earlier, you can see from the experience on these, I really didn't play the mill cards that much. And it's just to get the mill values on the cards, I found that it was really difficult to get that. So it's active as long as there are X or more cards in your opponent's graveyard. So for So Tiny to work at its ultimate power, your opponent needs 20 cards in their graveyard. 30 for Vantress Gargoyle, 25 for the Secret Keeper, 20 for Into the Story, 15 for this, and then 15 for the Serpent. So I like to play decks that are a little bit faster, and so I'm hoping that if we see more things like this, that the cost will be down just a little bit. Now, I know there were a bunch of new things that were going to put things into graveyards, and I imagine that we will see more of that with Theros. So maybe something like Lockmere Serpent is going to have more utility as we go, and so it'll get a little bit stronger as we get more cards that let us put things in our opponent's graveyard. But I actually felt like of all of the different mechanics available, that Mill is the weakest of the mechanics in the set. Which brings us to our final new mechanic, Resourceful. Resourceful. This one. All right. So I tried out a few different decks with Resourceful, and I settled on Resourceful is awesome because of Mad Ratter. And Mad Ratter makes these little rats that wreck your opponent, and is absolutely amazing. And then when I got to play with the Vanguards, the Royal Saiyans actually make great use of Resourceful, both because they have Resourceful and because they make it so that it definitely triggers every turn. So I really like that. If you looked at my video about like what are some possible chase cards going into the set for newer players, etc., Ironcrag Pyromancer was one of them. It gives you an opportunity to deal damage to any target. We had Faerie Vandal. This one is going to buff itself quite a bit. And so the resourceful cards are pretty decent, but I found that it was actually surprisingly difficult to get it to trigger every single turn. So I would have liked to see more cards with resourceful here so that we could get more out of it, because I love the mechanic itself. Now, because of how much card draw is available in Puzzle Quest, I feel like this one's probably a little bit difficult to implement, just because, like, if, say, Improbable Alliance, if it was just resourceful, every card past the first one that you draw, you get this ability. I mean, you could make 5 fairy tokens a turn and then have the activate and all that kind of good stuff. And so that could be a little bit strong, especially like with like Faerie Vandal, for example. Like, imagine if this didn't cap at 3. So let's say that you drew like 20 cards in a turn because you were using wheel effects, things like that, and you were able to give this thing like plus 20 a turn. It would make it from like okay, this is like a cool gimmicky mechanic to like, wow, this is like actually really, really strong. So on the whole, resourceful was kind of on the mediocre side for me, which brings me to just the set as a whole from a design standpoint. I really like the design of the set. There are very good commons, there are very good uncommons, there are very good rares, there's very good mythics, and there's an absolutely crazy masterpiece with a few other strong ones. In the event that you're wondering, what is the absolutely crazy masterpiece? It's this boy right here. Urza is bonkers. But I absolutely love how they implemented all of the cards. I love how they implemented the mechanics. And on the whole, I've really liked Eldraine. Like, I mean, Sir Kara, right? So someone on stream recently told me that this is Kara, not Sarah. But Sir Kara is like a crazy useful card. Like, it's super, super good. It has so many good abilities, and it's just a rare. So like, someone in a new start group pulled Sir Kara, and like, once you get this, it's not like it's the hardest thing to pull because it's a rare, but once you get it, it's really powerful. So you've got solid power all the way through the set. There's a lot of different utility that you can get out of it. There are some cards that have just become absolute staples in a lot of my decks, like Embercleave. I use this in almost every red deck. I actually just make excuses to throw red into a deck just so that I can use Embercleave. So like, I'll make sure that my Planeswalkers have red. Or over here, my absolute favorite card in the set, which I can't believe I'm saying is a common, is this thing. Like, Nissa Worldwaker is my favorite Planeswalker to play, and Kenrith's transformation makes her abilities become disgusting. So this card is bonkers, and it's only a common. So I love that. It's fantastic. So yeah, Eldraine card design on the whole, I'd give the set a 4 out of 5. I would give it a 5 out of 5 if there weren't just so many issues around the double-sided nature of Adventure, but I really love the cards themselves. This brings us to the events. So we've got 3 new events. We've got the Great Tournament, we've got Challenge of the Courts, and we've got Fables of Eldraine. So I'm going to start with Challenge of the Courts, I'm going to move on to Fables of Eldraine, and then I'll talk about the Great Tournament last. So Challenge of the Courts, we got 5 versions. We've got Garenbrig, which is green, Ardenvale, which is white, Embereth, which is red, Vantress, which is blue, and Locthwain, which is black. Oh, before I forget, these are all based on the rare convert lands right here. So convert, there are 5 of them. Midnight Clock is not one of the convert ones. They all convert to a monocolor. This is actually one of the things that I love about the set is we got 2 cycles. So we've got the rare cycle and we've got the common cycle. So like the Dwarven Mine, Gingerbread Cabin. And what's really cool about these is that they actually come with the Planeswalkers. So if you get the Eldraine Planeswalkers, they come with these lands. And so it makes it really easy for newer players to get them. And then not just newer players, but if you're a person who's been playing for a while, these are staples in Standard. They're absolute staples in Standard. And so it makes it so that they're more accessible, and I like that they made them more accessible. So, yeah, stand aside. Anyways, the event itself. So this is absolutely everything that I want from a weekly event in Puzzle Quest. So we've got 5 different versions of it. So it's going to rotate. It's going to be different every time. We've got interesting objectives. So almost all of them, I think all of them actually have the win with common, uncommon, and rare cards. So like a pauperish peasant version. And then the permanent supports actually in a lot of the different nodes really aided in the completion of the objectives, or in some way related to the objectives in ways that I thought were really cool. So I absolutely loved these events. So like, for example, here we need to create food tokens and we need to gain life. So those are 2 things that go hand in hand. And then also when you create food tokens, your creatures get more powerful. So if you're playing toward the objective, then you've got an advantage. Over here, we need to cast spells during a fight, and adventure cards count as spells. And when you do that, it's going to convert gems to your Planeswalker colors. So I really like that. Like, I really like when the permanent supports aid in the objective. And I also really like it when they make it so that it enhances the mechanics of the set without making them necessarily feel overpowered, but that they feel a lot more fun and a lot easier to use. And so this wound up being true for Resourceful in the blue node. This wound up being true in really all of the different nodes here. So I really like that. And then the other thing, and this is really, really important, right? So if we look at the rewards all the way through, the rewards are worth it to play. So it's worth it to play these events every time they come around. You get a decent smattering of mana crystals, so these yellow crystals. I mean, even in bronze, you're getting 50 mana crystals, which is actually, it's very substantial. And in platinum, we're getting 80. So we're getting good mana crystals no matter where we are. The pinkies, the mana jewels are actually also pretty decent. So you're getting 16 for playing everything in platinum. You're getting 5 for playing everything in bronze. But then if you actually choose to invest in the event and play all of the nodes, you can earn an extra 30 in platinum to an extra 15 in bronze. So if you actually play the event seriously, then you can get significantly more out of this event than you would have gotten from something like Rising Tensions, apart from the fact that you don't get the booster crafting orbs. But you do, in turn, get an extra booster pack out of it and some more runes and significantly more crystals. So I love this event. This event is a hands down 5 out of 5. This was like, I can sing the praises of this event all day. This was a perfect event for me. Fables of Eldraine continued in the line of events where we got a PvE event where we have a bunch of different nodes. We complete all the nodes. You need to complete all of them to get all of the rewards. We work our way through all of them. We get to the bottom and we see our lovely rewards over here. And the rewards, once again, are very solid for just an event that you can sit down, play kind of like the training grounds, and that you're just going to play through stuff, except you've actually got objectives to complete. And it's really rewarding. So once again, in Platinum, we're getting 60 mana crystals and 40 mana jewels, which is substantial. And we get 3 Eldraine booster packs also. So I really like that. You get 7,500 mana runes, and that's great. And even in Bronze, so for newer players, you're getting 3 booster packs still, which is fantastic because Eldraine is a really great set. You're getting a bunch of mana crystals, you're getting acceptable mana jewels, and so I really like this. I really like this type of event. We have a few of them in the game now, and they're all just solid 5 out of 5s for me. Like, I play them pretty much every time they come out, and I love them. So this brings us to the third event, and it is the Coalition event, the Great Tournament. The Great Tournament is a weekend event, it has 5 different nodes, and they have all the different permanent supports, and they have a myriad of different objectives. Ultimately, I found that this dream crafting one was the most difficult to achieve just because it made it so that it was a little bit slow due to you have to have 20 or more cards in your opponent's graveyard, and if you didn't get a bunch of the new cards that did that, it just made it take a little bit longer. And I know that the permanent support helped with that, so it definitely made it possible, and I like that. That's once again absolutely what I want to see from a permanent support. And I also like that this made it so that there were at least some difficult objectives to complete so that everyone didn't have perfect. There are events where it's like everyone has perfect, and those events are really boring to me. So I actually like there being difficult objectives to a point. So I like how the objectives work for the Great Tournament. You get to progression rewards, and you're getting 3 booster packs. You're getting 40 mana crystals and 5 mana jewels in platinum. And then in bronze, so I know that there's silver and gold. I know that those 2 tiers exist. I'm sure that a bunch of you are in one of those 2 tiers. I'm not excluding you in that I've forgotten about you. It's just that you've got newer players, you've got a lot of people who've been playing for a while, and you've got some players in the middle. So I'm really sort of like preaching both of the bigger ends of the game. And then here we're getting the 3 booster packs again, but just 10 and 2. So we look at, well, this is a coalition event. It's a PvP event. What do you get for placement? And for placement all the way through, it's the same. If you get a perfect score, or I mean, just if you get first place in the event in your bracket, and it's a 3,000 person bracket. So if you get the best score out of 3,000 players, you're getting 1 booster pack, you're getting 5,000 runes, and you're getting 5 mana jewels. I am still here. That is actually what you're getting. The coalition rewards, these are fine. I have absolutely no issue with the coalition rewards for this set. So the coalition rewards are fantastic. You're getting booster packs, you're getting a very reasonable amount of mana crystals and mana jewels. I'd kind of, and runes, by the way, look at that. First and second get 10,000. I'd kind of like to see more booster packs coming out of here. I know that they've made it so you get a lot more boosters out of things like individual rewards and progression rewards and things like that. We had 3 different events in the set. And so while the other 2 events are solid 5 out of 5 for me, like I could play those events almost every day. I love them. This one is more of a 2 out of 5 for me. And it's really, it just boils down to the combination of the progression rewards and the individual rewards. So we've been seeing a trend of this type of event from a reward standpoint, starting with, I want to say War of the Spark. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And I want to say that I'm giving it a 2 because I really like the design of the event itself. The event itself, I think, if the rewards were in line with the time investment of the event, would be closer to like a 4 for me. The coalition events tend to run pretty long, so like there are certain ones that I really enjoy, but I'd probably give it like a 4, maybe a 5. But the rewards really hurt it. So I played this event the first time it came out, and I went perfect. And then I want to say that that's the only time that I played this event all the way through. It was like, all right, I got my perfect score, and I'm good, right? Like it takes a lot of time to play these events, and I'm sure it takes a ton of time to design them. But I'm hoping that with Theros, although we haven't seen that there are any new Theros Beyond Death events yet, I'm hoping that new coalition events moving forward have a little bit more in the progression and the individual rewards sections, just so that the coalition players feel more of a drive to play it. And then the other piece of this is that with this being like the second, it might have even been the 3rd set in a row. I think it's the 2nd that we've had rewards like these coming out. I know that my coalition took a little bit of a hit in participation for this event just because people weren't playing it. So I would like to see better rewards, just that people are more incentivized to play it, because it is a really cool event. Like if we scroll on up, like just like the adventures and casting creatures with power 3 or less, these two actually went together really well. If you look at like my favorite adventure cards, they almost all fit under that little guise right there. So you can, by playing the adventure cards, you can go ahead and complete the objective, right? Beanstalk Giant, it's a base 1/1. You've got things like, where are you? Giant Killer, really strong card. It's got a base 3 power, so you can go ahead and use it with that. You've got Foulmire Knight. It's a base 1 power, so it counts toward that objective. So it's really easy to complete the objective once you've gotten the cards, and it definitely gives you something to work toward. So if this event does ever get a tweak in the reward system, I think I will like it a lot more, because I like how they designed the actual play portion of the event, but the reward portion just really didn't incentivize me to like play it strongly. So that takes us through the cards, it takes us through the events, and then this brings us to the Planeswalkers. So I'm going to go ahead, close out of that, just so that we have the full screen over here to look at the Planeswalkers. We got 4 new Planeswalkers this set. Those 4 new Planeswalkers were Oko, they were Garruk, Cursed Huntsman, they were the Royal Saiyans, and Will and Rowan Kenneth. So the first one that came out was Garruk, Cursed Huntsman, and he is amazing. If you don't have Garruk, you really should get him. He is, I think, one of the best Planeswalkers in the game. I've been hoping that we'd have a good black-green Planeswalker for a long time. He is absolutely that Planeswalker. And so he's amazing for people who have big collections. He's amazing for people who are newer to the game. Like, he's just got solid power all around. His mana bonuses are good. His abilities are good. Stalk the Prey and Cursed Predation are both absolutely amazing abilities. So if you look, ignoring the cards that I'm putting in the decks, right? Although I actually really love that deck. His what he allows for deck building with 6 support, 7 spells is very generous. It's very good. And so he's a well-rounded Planeswalker, absolutely top tier, an amazing addition to the game. His health pool is amazing. So I'm really glad that they made Garruk Cursed Huntsman the way that he did. He is like a 6 out of 5 stars. Like he's amazing good. The next one is Oko. And if you saw my analysis before the set came out, I was like, you can probably skip Oko. He doesn't look that great. But now that I've gotten a chance to play him, well, I'm not saying that you have to have him in your collection. He is the Planeswalker that I'm having the most fun with of all the different Planeswalkers from the set. He is really, really cool. So his mana bonuses are very well spread out. It's kind of like Nissa Worldwaker or Teferi. So it's really easy to get solidly consistent and good mana gains with Oko. When all of the exclusives come out for booster crafting, unless you've gone and bought them, he plays very well with those cards, in part because of this first ability for 6 loyalty to make 3 food. That goes very well with Alayla. It goes very well with Korvold. And so he is maybe honestly the best Planeswalker in the game to use with those 2 exclusives. And I'm not exaggerating. Like, he's really good for them. His second ability, Fey Transformation, I loved it before I played him, and now that I've played him, I use it kind of like a crutch. So exile target opposing creature and an opposing artifact support. Then your opponent creates a food token. Giving them the food token really doesn't do anything, so it's not a big deal. But exiling the opposing creature and artifact support is awesome. And so, like, if you do give them the food, it doesn't get popped. You use it again. You exile the artifact. Hooray. But having on a blue and green Planeswalker an exile ability for 12 loyalty is pretty great. I love that both Garruk and Oko have this. So when Oko becomes available for crystals, if you're up for like, if you get the exclusive cards from this set, then I would try and ultimately get my hands on Oko. Like, he's much more fun than he might look at face value. Now, the third ability, this create a high Fae market token. I've never been a huge fan of playing with Greg's cards. I did have a great laugh on stream with this when my opponent played Gaia's Revenge, and I was like, oh, shoot, I've got nothing to do with that. And then someone in the chat was like, hey, what do you think of Reality Swap? And I was like, nah. And then I was like, wait a minute. I can swap my Urza for Gaia and then use Fae Transformation and kill Urza. So this gives me a way of dealing with Gaia. That's awesome. And then just like the first 3 cards in your hand gain half their mana is pretty useful. So all in all, I really like Oko. I like him a lot more than I thought I would. I wouldn't have gotten him on my own, but now that I have him, I like, even if I didn't have him now, I would get him because he's really fun, like really, really fun. So then we've got Rowan Kenneth and Will Kenneth. These are the first of their type, not in that they are a double-sided planeswalker, but that their mana bonuses change as they flip back and forth. And then you can actually use the loyalty abilities from both sides in one turn. So you could deep freeze a creature and then it flips and immediately infuriate a creature. Rowan and Will they're fun. Like they're really fun. You need to be a little bit careful with them when you're playing with them because of the mana bonus changing. Like, you don't want to target white because it's the +2 for both. You definitely want to target the red or the blue. And my suggestion for these two is to actually pick which side you predominantly want to play with, and then try and use 2 abilities in a turn, one to flip over and one to flip back. The third ability, the whole strategic planning Shatterstorm, is pretty cool. I like it. They don't supplant things like Rawl, Bolas, Brokon as like super top tier, but they fit in the mold of really fun planeswalkers to play with. I really like the design that went into this, and I'm really hopeful that we continue to see other planeswalkers and things that are added to the game that are designed like Will and Rowan, just that have that flexibility. The one thing, if I could have changed anything with them, would be just to lower the loyalty costs for both sides, because even though 15, 12, 6 is pretty reasonable, if they were a little bit lower, it would give you more of an opportunity to use both sides in a turn, and you could take better advantage of them being the first of this particular type of planeswalker. But I mean, that's really the only thing. Like they're definitely really fun to play with. And the final one are the Royal Saiyans. So the Royal Saiyans, when I looked at these two, I was like, all right, they look pretty cool, but like if you look at them side by side with Rawl, you can probably skip them. And now that I've played them, I feel I still feel a little bit similarly with them. So I like them. I really like them with a very heavy Mythic Masterpiece deck, specifically with Kess. I like that Spark and Ice can dump spells in the graveyard, and then you can still gain mana or do additional damage. And I actually really like this Royal Inheritance ability. I like that, unlike Rawl. So I almost never use Rawl's third ability because I have to hit that Not Now or Select, and you just have to hit it so many times when you're chaining your spells that I'm like, I'd rather not do it. But with Royal Inheritance, there's really no reason not to get this ability down and then use it. So there's the lazy part of me, right? If you like Rawl but you're lazy and you're like, I don't know that I want to use him because I have to tap the screen too much, then the Royal Scions are the perfect planeswalker for you, because they're just like, as a player, right? You can play them like you would play Rawl, but you can use them and be a little bit more lazy. For newer players, it's going to be a little bit harder to get very much out of the Royal Scions, because I feel like to get the most out of them, you really want to have as many red-blue combo cards in your deck. And so as you have to have those, they require very specific cards to be good. So the Royal Scions of all of the different walkers in the set, I feel like they're probably my least favorite of the four. I still like them, but I love Oko, I love Garruk, and I enjoy Will and Rowan. So the Planeswalkers on the whole, I'm going to go ahead and actually give a solid 4.5 out of 5 for the Planeswalkers. I like that we got a new type of Planeswalker. I like that we got a new powerhouse Planeswalker. I like that we got new Planeswalkers that took advantage of the mechanics of the set. And so I really like how that whole piece was designed also. And this finally brings us to the Vanguards. Now you notice that I have most of them. I don't have all of them. So you're a silly goose. Eldraine. So I have Will and Rowan. I have the Royal Scions. I have Oko. I have regular Rowan. I don't have the Garruk Vanguard, and I don't have either of the Garruk Vanguards. Let's just tap this. This makes it a little bit more tricky because of the full art things, and I don't have the rare Oko version either. As Vanguards go, I like these just as much as I like all of the other Vanguards that exist in the game. Rowan Fearless Spark Mage is terrifying with knights because you can just give any knight you want double strike. This pairs amazingly with Sir Kara, like super amazingly with Sir Kara, and then having the Adamant Red to deal 1 damage to all your opponent's creatures is also just like pretty nifty in that you can just slowly start pinging them down a bit. But the real bread and butter for this card is that +1 for double strike. As I mentioned earlier, I really like the Royal Scions from a design perspective and a play perspective because it takes advantage of Resourceful. It's actually a very strong Resourceful ability because you can add an extra 4 damage to your opponent and drain 4 mana from them every turn. And you can enable that whole thing by drawing an additional 2 cards. So you can guarantee that you're going to get 2 of those 4 Resourceful just by having the card down, which is fantastic. And then the -3 lets you choose a creature to get +3/+0 and double strike. I am a huge fan of double strike. Double strike is, in my opinion, one of the most powerful abilities in the game. So having things like the Royal Scions to give double strike and having Rowan to give double strike is a big win-win for me. It's like a double win. All right, I don't deserve punishment for that, I promise. Oko. This was the one I was most excited for. Not because it makes food, not because it exchanges creatures, but because I love Kenrith's transformation. I was hoping this would work like Kenrith's transformation. It does not. However, no, not you, Rowan. That being said, with the exclusives, right? So once again, playing with the exclusive creatures, this card is amazing. I just realized that I jumped from Planeswalkers to Vanguards, and I skipped the exclusive creatures. I very sincerely apologize for that. I will be doing the exclusive creatures next, but I promise I will not forget about them entirely. So, in conjunction with the exclusives, this card is fantastic. It makes food tokens. There are a number of the exclusives that benefit very strongly from the food tokens coming down. You've got this ability here to neuter your opponent's stuff. I actually really like this ability in conjunction with Dracuseth. So Dracuseth hits your opponent, it's a 9/9 dragon, and it also does 3 damage to your opponent's first creature every time it attacks. So with this, especially because it's just a -2, and this dude has 4 shields and a +1, it's pretty easy to get this -2 down on your opponent's creature every time they play one. And so with Dracuseth down, it's just an automatic your opponent gets, no creatures. So it's actually a surprisingly decent amount of control. And if your opponent does somehow play like some kind of super amazing creature that you're like, wow, I'd actually rather have that, then you can just take it. So the Oko Thief of Crowns Vanguard is very cool. It's not like game-breaking necessary, you have to have it, but it is definitely cool. I didn't wind up targeting this one here. I would have liked it if this 0 actually made 2 of these Vicious Wolf tokens, so you'd get a 4/4 instead of just 1/2/2 for 0, or if it was a +1. Either of those would have been fine for me. It being a 0 made me feel like I really don't need to get this particular Vanguard. But that being said, I don't feel like every single Vanguard that is printed needs to be a card that you're just like, yes, I have to have this. It is nice that this gives green a way of killing things, but at 16 mana, it's pretty clunky. It's going to be hard to play. From the rares, we've got Will, which I've actually used a little bit. I really like Will. This is great with Resourceful. So if you play this one with the Royal Saiyans, then you're guaranteed to get your Resourceful 4 every single turn, which means you're guaranteed to get that 4 damage, that 4 mana drain. This -2 ability is fantastic. It totally neuters your opponent's creatures. They become 0/3. They lose their evergreens. So my favorite moment with this card was my opponent played a Razia and swung at me, and then I used the -2 ability, and Razia lost all of her abilities. This includes prevent damage. This includes the vigilance. This includes when the opposing planeswalker takes damage, you take damage. It got rid of everything. So this is actually a surprisingly decent ability. And honestly, Will Kenneth is a pretty decent card. So I would actually say that Will Kenneth is better than the Mythic Jace Vanguard that exists right now. What is your name, Jace? Jace? What? Jace? Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, right? I like Will as a rare more than I like Jace, Wielder of Mysteries as a mythic. I moved away. No. So for the Vanguards, the only thing that I like the Vanguards, I would have liked to have seen them a little bit sooner in the set so that I could play with them more. But as we didn't have a lot in the way of Vanguard objectives, I really didn't lose any sleep over that. So I'm glad that we have them. I'm glad they're here. I'm glad that they gave us new content so that everything sort of kept feeling fresh. The Vanguards, as Vanguards go, I'm going to give them a solid 4. I've yet to see a Vanguard that I'm like, you have to own this or else kind of thing. But that's for all Vanguards. So 4 out of 5. I think they did a really good job designing these Vanguards. Now, this brings us to exclusives. Unfortunately, I can't actually just type in exclusive and have the exclusives pop up. You get nothing here, even though I have them. So the exclusives. We had some new stuff happen with the exclusives in this set. So we had the 5 mythic exclusives, and our 5 mythic exclusives were Corvold, Fae Cursed King, who is awesome. I love this card. Solid 5 out of 5. When booster crafting comes around, you should get it. You've got Kenrith, the Returned King. He's actually pretty good. He's not as busted as he looks with that black ability, but he's still really good. So I'd actually give Kenrith a solid 4.5 to 5 out of 5. I like Corvold better, but Kenrith is still pretty darn good. You should go ahead and get Kenrith. We got Sir Gwyn, Hero of Ashvale. I really tried to break this. I tried a lot of different ways to break this card. I know that the experience maybe makes it look like, no, you didn't. But no, I really did. I tried a number of different matches, and then some of them I would just back out of and then be like, all right, I'm going to try something else. When you do that, you don't really get the goodies. And so a lot of that experience is also in the training grounds where you're not really getting a lot of experience, but I couldn't find a way to break this card. So this one, of all of the exclusives, if you get the other 4, then you don't necessarily need to get Sir Gwyn. Alayla is much stronger than I thought she would be. That she has lifelink is fantastic. That her ability is whenever an artifact or enchantment enters the battlefield or gains a shield, you create that token is really good. And so Alayla with Oko means that every time you use Oko's first ability, you get 3 fairies. And that first ability of Oko's, which creates a support, also can just do extra goodness for you. So Alayla is really good, really strong. So when booster crafting comes out, you should definitely try and get Alayla as soon as possible. Alayla is another 5 out of 5 for me. I really, really like Alayla. Don't be fooled by her looking like a 4/5. She's actually a 6/5 because of her ability. She's a very solid card. Chulainn. I feel like I need to play with adventures in their intended form without having any worry, concern, etc. about crashes to give a proper feed on Chulainn. Chulainn does come back when he dies. So that was actually the first thing I was wondering. So he says, if a creature you control would die, return it to your hand. Does that include Chulainn? The answer is yes, he does. And so you can use Chulainn with a bunch of different sacrifice effects, and Chulainn and the other things you sacrifice are going to come back, and that's super cool. He's kind of like one of the first, if not the first of his kind that does that. And I really like that he buffs the whole adventure thing. And I like that he's very good with it, but he's not absolutely essential with it. So it's not like if you didn't get Chulainn, you couldn't play adventure. But if you did get Chulainn, then you could play the adventure a little bit more hardcore. So Chulainn, I'm going to hold judgment on until Lucky Clover is fixed, but I'm kind of champing at the bit to get my hands on that Lucky Clover fix, because that really looks super, super good to me. Now, they did something a little bit different with the exclusives this time. So each of the mythic bundles also came with a number of rares. So I feel like there's really two sides to this one. From a mythic bundle standpoint, it made getting the bundles feel like you were getting more out of them. So like when I bought Kenrith's bundle, I was like, oh sweet, I'm getting Happily Ever After out of this. That's awesome. And the different bundles that came out, I think that all of them had a card that I was like, man, I really want one of those rares too, where I was like, I really want two of these cards, and the only way that I can get these cards is to buy them. And for a free-to-play game, like, you can play this free-to-play. I'm ultimately okay with it, but at the same time, like, this one really goes two ways, right? So for when I bought the bundles, it made it feel like I was just getting more out of my bundles, and I liked that. Like, I liked getting more out of my bundles, and I liked feeling like I was getting more for my money. To the same extent for the bundles that I did not get, right? So my free-to-play moments, I found that not being able to get some of the cards via events made me think, oh gosh, all right, so let's say that I can't get 4 of these bundles. And so let's say there's going to be like 10 or 8 rares, right? Let's say there's going to be 8 rares that I can't get. Then I need to spend an additional 8,000 or 12,000 of my booster crafting orbs to try and catch up to this, so that I can then go ahead and craft my mythics. So you'll see I got like 31,000 booster crafting orbs in the set, and so I would actually have been able to craft all of them. And I wanted to reserve my judgment on this one until the end, when I could see, all right, well, like, actually, how likely would I have been to actually been able to like crafted all of these rares. And so my final takeaway from that is, as if you're a person who's okay with paying to play, then it's a nice change, because you're going to be getting more for your money. You're getting more cards, and so in getting more cards, you're getting more feel. You're getting more for that money that you're spending. If you are a free-to-play player, then it means that you're going to have to spend more of your resources to try and complete the set. And this will be true for all of the other sets moving forward after this, if they continue to put rare exclusives in with the mythic exclusives. So I'm kind of torn on this one. Actually, like, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Because for the bundles that I bought, I was like, yeah, sweet, I like this. And then for the bundles that I didn't buy, I was ultimately like, oh man, now I have to craft these, you know? And a lot of these rares were really cool cards. Like you look at Knight's Charge here that I've got up on the screen, and like there were turns where I would get out like hundreds of power of knights in one turn just by the adamant white black. And by the way, when you get this card, you do have to get white and black match in one turn. Just make sure that you're either running a bunch of white converters or a bunch of black converters in your deck. So if you have either of those in your deck, then what happens is you wait for your supports to convert to that gem at the beginning of your turn, and then you just look for a match of the other color and you'll be fine. You'll be able to convert, and easy peasy lemon squeezy. So my final take on the whole exclusive thing is I really like how all of the exclusive cards were designed. So this includes the rares, this includes the mythics. So as we go through the different cards in the set and we look at them, the exclusives all felt powerful, right? Sir Gwyn, I couldn't find a way to make that one super powerful, but the other ones, they all felt powerful. And even within Gwyn's bundle, having that Knight's Charge was really cool because that card is darn powerful. It is bugged right now, so when you do ultimately get your hands on it, just keep that in mind before you start doing all of your testing. I'm hoping it gets fixed in the patch notes, but there's just so many darn good cards in this set. Like they're all really, really cool. Like I like the whole fairy tale theme, you know? And like I love the Rat Plague tokens. I had a lot of fun with those. I had a lot of fun with Alayla, with Chulainn. So when you get your hands on the exclusives, I hope that you're able to test them all out and that you have as much fun with them as I did, because I feel like the exclusives in this set were definitely really fun, and at the very least having all of those extra rares to play with when you're able to craft those gives you even more new cards to just experiment around with and just to get more of a feel for the Eldraine set, because they're pretty much in large all solidly good cards, whether or not you're a newer player or a more experienced player who just so happens to have like basically everything. So all in all, what is my final take on Throne of Eldraine as a set in Puzzle Quest? My final grade for the Eldraine set is going to be a 4 out of 5. I like the cards, I like the exclusives, I like the feel of the events. We got a lot of the coalition events though. The only thing that's really keeping it out of a 5 for me, it's two things, is the adventure, so the flip-sided card thing, and then the reward structure for the coalition events. We got a lot of coalition events for the reward structure that we saw for Challenge of the Courts. No, the Great Tournament. And so I would have liked to see a little bit more out of that area. So for this set, a solid 4 out of 5. I love the cards. I'm going to be playing with these cards for a long, long time. I use a lot of the different cards. Like I use a lot of them. There are a lot of darn good cards in this set. It's a very good set for newer players. It's a very good set for people somewhere in the middle. And it's a very good set for people who own like everything going into it. There's a lot of versatility. There's a lot of good removal. There's a lot of good bomb cards. There's a lot of good gem converters. There's a whole bunch of things that enable fun and dynamic gameplay. So that's really it. Thank you for watching. Let me know how you guys felt about the Throne of Eldraine block. Let me know, what did you agree with? What do you feel differently about? And I hope to see you in the next one.